Well, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up, 49ers fans. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger with you. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Larry, it feels like a year ago since the 49ers beat the Seahawks. We've had so many leftovers and so many consequential football games between then and now. So we'll take a little look back, obviously, at what the 49ers did on Thanksgiving. But the focus this week instantly turns to 49ers and Eagles. Larry, it promises to be the most consequential game of the year.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it. If you're the 49ers, you thought Buffalo was going to do you a solid yesterday and take care of the Eagles. The Niners not just need to beat the Eagles, they need the Eagles to lose at least one more game, and then the 49ers have to run the table. So in reality, I think if you're saying realistically, what do the Niners need? The Niners need to win on Sunday. They probably need to see the Eagles lose a couple games before the end of the year. And that would give the 49ers the ability to lose one more game in their own category. So we shall see. It was, it was an impressive come from behind win. I mean, what a field goal, 59 yards in icy rain and wind and cold by Jake Elliott to force the overtime. One of the most amazing kicks.
Larry,
I would say it's almost like Vinatieri-esque. It was amazing watching that.
Larry, it's one of the single greatest plays I think I've seen in the NFL this year, if not in my life. Like, you want to talk about degree of difficulty on a kick with pressure on it too.
Yeah.
Jake Elliott just drilled that bad boy last night in terrible conditions and with the pressure of all of Philadelphia just staring right at him. It was a monstrous field goal. It was a hell of a game. And I think that the first thing we need to just acknowledge here is why this game is going to be so special and important. It's because really, Larry, the Eagles are that good. They are that good. They're on a tear of football right now where they have beaten the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills. They got the 49ers coming up, followed by the Cowboys and the Seahawks. I mean, if they seriously run the gauntlet through that, you can't do anything but tip your cap and just say, Jalen Hurts, you are the quarterback of a bunch of just straight up gangster winners. And that's what they are. They win grimy. They win ugly. All of those nail-biting tests that so many 49ers critics say I can't take them seriously until they pass these nail-biting tests. And I don't think that that's completely unfounded criticism. But boy, do the Eagles mark the spot like on grimy, ugly winning football. They do it all the time. Every time you look up, they're in a game that could go one way, but always just goes their way. They're a special team. I mean, knowing how to win is a skill, and it's a skill that they have.
They're loaded. I mean, you saw the kicker. Elliott, makes one from 59 yards out. On the back end, James Bradbury did what he does. He had a pick. They had traded for Kevin Byard. He led the team in tackles. He had 13 tackles, 9 solo. How many box scores do you see where 4 different defenders get double-digit tackles? That's what the Eagles had yesterday. Zach Cunningham had 10. Some guy named Reed Blankenship had 11. The former Raider Nicholas Morrow had 12, and Byard had 13. So that's amazing. They won despite A.J. Brown just having a kind of an day. Devontae Smith was the receiver of choice yesterday, 7 for 106 and a touchdown. Olamide Zacchaeus got into the end zone. The Eagles ran from 6 yards a carry. But to me, it all starts and ends with Hurts and that line on both sides. And Hurts, what can you say? I mean, threw for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also ran 14 times for 65 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Or actually threw for 3. So he accounted for 5 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's that right there. That's it. Jalen Hurts. And then they didn't have Lane Johnson. They lost. Now, on the good news front, Fletcher Cox went out with a groin injury, struggled mightily to just get to the blue tent. So I got to think Fletcher Cox is either not going to be 100% or won't go. Jalen Carter, I know, had a back injury. He came back in. Lane Johnson, their star right tackle, also has a groin injury. I would imagine he's going to go this week. But, and the Niners roll in feeling good about themselves, playing good ball in their own right, but they need this one. The 49ers have to get this one, or it's a return trip to Philadelphia. I think more than anything, the 49ers have to go into Philly and really battle them toe to toe, win or lose, because even if the Niners win it, they're still going to have to go back there most likely. So they got to kind of show that they can stand toe to toe in Philly's backyard with Philly. And, even if they don't win the game, they cannot get blown out in this game. If they get blown out next week, then you kind of wonder if they can actually get it done in December or January when it matters.
Good morning. If you're just joining us, Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger with an emergency 49ers wake up. We normally come to you after every single morning the 49ers play. Obviously, that was on Thursday. We did a 49ers wake up on Friday and agreed that we had to be back here for Eagles week first thing on Monday morning with the Bay Area's biggest morning show. And Larry and I actually do this together, where the response has been fantastic. Our channels are growing. Larry, I start this morning with 9,800 subscribers on the dot. So, I mean,
good job, man. Good job.
Thank you.
Building.
I can even count from there on. I'll know how many we added just today based on it being at 9,800 here. You are exploding. The videos that you do are just being shared everywhere, and it's really happening. And this is a week where, again, consequences, battle lines are drawn, and you're right. This is not a look bad week. You can lose a game and still look good. The 49ers need to show the entire NFL world that they can stand there, and Brock Purdy is a difference between getting your ears boxed in Philadelphia or playing the Eagles tight. Now, I'll say this. There's a lot of teams that play the Eagles tight. Like, I was watching what the Bills were doing yesterday, thinking that this is a team. I'm trying to look at the vacuum of the game and then the totality of the season, because I think the Bills have an argument that they're the least impressive team in football based on preseason expectations, right? They have not had the season that they wanted to have, but they're still pretty good. And that pretty good football team at times was doing what it needed to do to Philadelphia. I mean, Josh Allen has a receiver break to the back of the end zone instead of inside. That game could have been over before Philadelphia even touched the ball in overtime. So there were, I think, a lot of positive signs and a lot of stuff that Kyle can coach through. And you know, Larry, that Kyle's got, I got to go Trent Ball here. He's got an envelope. He's got an envelope of plays. He's got an envelope of plays that he has been saving for this game. There is an element of this playbook that we haven't seen yet, that Kyle's been saving for this. That's what great offensive minds do. That's what good coaches do. And look, I just think that you give Kyle a couple extra days to prepare, things can get dangerous for the opponent. So I got to see the 49ers go in there and win before I'm going to make any big, bold predictions like, yeah, the Niners are going to win that game. But I think the Niners can win this game. I really do. I think that they can win this game. I think that they can match the Eagles physically as best as any team in the NFL can make the argument with this is our defensive line against that offensive line. And I know that you have Philadelphia guests coming on your channel this week. I'm doing the same. I'm going to have John Kincaid, who is a really good sports talk show host in Philadelphia, joining me tomorrow morning. And what I want to know from all like Philadelphia insiders, guys who were at practice watching, not this year, but last year, what is the tale of the tape in practice between Hargrave and Kelsey? Because so much of the game is going to happen right there. You know, does Hargrave have any inside working knowledge of Kelsey and that offensive line that can be a real difference maker for the 49ers defensive line as they get ready for that? I mean, because that's the game right there, Larry, right? I mean, the whole game. You can talk about all the quarterbacks and the razzle-dazzle and the wide receivers and the back end of these defenses. This game gets decided between the Eagles offensive line and the Niners defensive line, does it not?
Well, I mean, it's a huge angle. It's a huge angle. I mean, Kelsey had 2 false starts when it mattered yesterday. That was very surprising. So I kind of wonder. And then he trotted back to the locker room between the fourth quarter and the overtime. So, it's the time of the year, Damon, where, everybody's hurt. Tell me when you're injured kind of a thing. And so everybody's banged up and we're going to find out. I mean, I think there's several angles on this thing. To me, one of the things that I feel best about is the way that Brock Purdy's playing right now. I think that's, and just, how bad the Niners seem to want it. I got to share the screen on this one because I did a video on this. This is an amazing play. This was the play of the game for the 49ers against the Seahawks. And here it is. Rewind it back. This is, 28-yard line. Yeah, here we go. Purdy drifts left, throws a dime to Ayuk right in the middle of 4 defenders. And it's that kind of aggressiveness. Here it is from the end zone wide. And you'll see Purdy with a left-handed drop back, flips the hips, sees it, doesn't hesitate. Ayuk and these 2 guys are in one right now. I mean, look at now this is behind center. Look at the feel that they have for each other. Purdy sees, him and Ayuk are absolutely in lockstep here. This is a risky play, man. There's 4 defenders in this box, but he sticks it in there.
He's got to put it in the perfect spot in order for that to work.
Yeah, he's got to put it in the perfect spot. But I mean, there's also pressure. He's got pressure off the side here. Hall is about to hit him. And, this also is, look at the surgically repaired right elbow. Look how close the surgically repaired right elbow comes to getting hit. Oh, it's almost very eerily similar to the Hassan Reddick play in the NFC Championship game. I mean, so you got Brock who's playing free and he's in lockstep with this awesome receiver who's having a career year. And there you go. I think if there's one thing to feel really, really good about, it's Brock Purdy is seeing it, feeling it, and this is his number 1 guy, and they're on the same page.
By the way, what is that goofy foot drop back of Brock's where he drops back like he's a left-handed quarterback and then flips his entire base? For a guy with great footwork, that doesn't smack of clinical footwork. You know what I mean? It seems like that's
unless they're trying to sell that he's going to his offensive left, right, and then he's coming back right.
He's not doing that. I guess my point is he's not doing that because he's undisciplined with his feet. That's a choice.
Oh, it's by design. No, it's by design.
Yeah, without a doubt. I would like to know more about it, why it's there, what it's supposed to open up. That's some inside football stuff that maybe you can get to the bottom of in Santa Clara this week.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that I feel really great about. I mean, and this sounds crazy, but Mitch Wishnowsky is having a dominating year. He pinned the Seahawks at the 13. He pinned the Seahawks at the 6. He pinned the Seahawks at the 2. I mean, this guy's touch, Damon, inside of inside of the 20 right now is just absolutely breathtaking. Yeah, so 6, the 13, and the 2. And the Niners on all 3 phases. The one thing when I did the film review yesterday that stood out on really all 3 phases of the game, this is not one guy. This is a total team effort. Shanahan's devising some amazing plays. Purdy's playing off his, out of his gourd right now. He's playing incredible ball. Juwan Jennings had maybe one of the most amazing plays. Charlie Warner is blocking his butt off. CMC is having a career year. Ayuk, Debo. You name it offensively. Then on special teams, Jake Moody seems to be locked in. Darrell Luter had a touchdown saving tackle. Wishnowsky pinned those guys back on the inside their 23 times. Ronnie Bell had a fumble recovery. Samuel Womack, Oren Burks. And then when you flip it over to the defensive side, literally, Mooney Ward had one of his best games. Dre Greenlaw, Jair Brown were strong against the run. Ambry Thomas is coming on. Fred Warner, Demo Lenore had an amazing play on third down to get off the field. Hargrave is rounding into form. Bosa had an amazing tackle on Charbonnet on 4th and 1. I mean, you name it. Armstead and Hargrave, since the addition of Chase Young, have taken it to another level. Randy Gregory had a big play. Givens. I mean, it's a total team effort. I counted at least 11 or 12 guys on defense that made huge plays in the game on Thursday. Lots of different guys contributing on special teams, lots of different guys contributing on offense. So, I mean, the Niners roll in with some momentum here.
Well, and like you said, it's going to take all that momentum and the total team effort to beat a team that, you can sit around and talk about the Eagles all afternoon and not really get to Kenneth Gainwell or Boston Scott. But these are the guys who, in their limited touches or carries, get you 5-6 yards just about every single time you look up. DeAndre Swift didn't have a big day receiving the ball yesterday out of the backfield, but he can do that. He's their Christian McCaffrey electric level explosive back. And, like you said, how often do you see 4 defenders all with double-digit tackles? Baird, Morrow, Blankenship, Cunningham. The Eagles are loaded too.
Yeah.
Absolutely loaded football team.
This is a battle of the Titans. It reminds me very similarly to the Niners and the Cowboys in the 90s, where you had the Niners and you had the Cowboys and then everybody else. Now, granted, those were the 2 best teams in all of football. Now, in this era, you still have the AFC with Mahomes, Lamar, some big boys in the AFC waiting for you. But the Niners and the Eagles and the Niners are the 2 best teams in the NFC. They've been the 2 best teams in the NFC since training camp. And it's on. And the fact of the matter is it's starting to remind me of Niners Cowboys 94. Why? Because the Niners had lost to the Cowboys and they took Ken Norton. The Niners had lost to the Eagles and they took Javon Hargrave. And now we're going to see if the Niners are good enough. And even if the Niners get this win, as we said before, it's, if nothing else, a win against the Eagles shows the 49ers that they can go in there under pressure in the cold and beat that team. The one thing I do think the 49ers have an advantage on is I think the Niners look a little bit fresher. They look a little bit faster. They look a little bit healthier. There's a little bit more bounce in their step. They looked very fast on that Seattle turf, where the Eagles, now granted, it's a slower turf, colder weather, that can make any team look a little slower, but they're starting to show the effects of playing all these extra games. It's Kelsey's a little dinged and Fletcher Cox a little older, and they've got some age. Let's be honest, Fletcher. I mean, and here we are. It's November the 27th. We're getting towards the end of the year. Who looks kind of vulnerable on the Eagle front? Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox. What do those guys all have in common? A little bit of age.
Maybe
right? They're a little long in the tooth.
All the brotherly shoving that they've been doing is, knocking on their door for a little bit. Look, when you go out to be the most physical team on the field, it's to get all over your opponent, but your body pays the tax on that. The Eagles have a playing style that they need to survive as much as their opponent does. And when the Niners are cooking, they kind of got the same thing, Larry, that very violent physical level of play, but they've seemed regenerated since the bye. I mean, they've played a better brand of football. They've looked more dangerous in their 3 wins post bye than in their 5 wins pre bye, in my mind, outside of the, outstanding lopsided win over the Dallas Cowboys. They're playing some of their best football of the year right now. And that's exactly what they got to do as they go into this Philadelphia game. You and I need to have a little talk right here, because I need to figure out how much you place value in something, because in baseball, I'm a big run differential guy.
Right.
In basketball, there's so many possessions, I value it a little bit less. And in football, I really don't know how to value it because a 1-point win is as good for a team as a 30-point win. It really is. It is a what is your record league more than any other sport. So the 49ers are plus 140 in point differential. Now, the Eagles are an NFL best 10-1, but they're just plus 64. What does that mean? How do you interpret that?
Well, I mean, it's the Eagles have won more close games. The Niners have had more blowouts. And there's lots of different ways to look at it, right? On one hand, you could say the Niners are a bigger, stronger machine because they've got their defense, the combination of their defense allowing points and their offense scoring points, that they're twice as good, more than twice as good as the Eagles. On the other hand, there is something to be said for winning the close, hard-fought games, and I think the Eagles are a little bit more battle-tested than the 49ers, because of the way they've won games. The 49ers have multiple games this year where they could take series off, or they could, just kind of play a soft shell defense. Second half against Pittsburgh comes to mind. Even the second half, there's some of these games where they've had, the Dallas game in the second half.
Jacksonville
In the second half, where they don't have to go for 4 quarters. So, on one hand, you could say, man, credit the Niners because they have a stronger machine on both sides of the ball and they're more explosive. On the other hand, you could say the Eagles are winning those grimy games and they're more used to winning, the 1-score game. They can play under pressure, probably better than the 49ers. But it's the way you play the day you play, as the old coach would say. And it's like, none of it really matters once they once they kick it off on Sunday. It's like, how do you play today? And I'll say this. I think, and I've been saying the Niners are going to beat Philly and Philly all year, because I just really feel like the 49ers, part of them saying that, hey, we would have won that game last year had our quarterback not go down, is almost like challenging yourself to be like, well, next time we get a shot at that team, we're going to fire. We're going to fire. So I think you're going to see the best of the 49ers. I would be shocked if the 49ers don't play well. Now, does Philly match them? The bounce of the ball, I'll tell you the one thing that's really kind of disturbing is how few penalties the Eagles produce. They just don't make mistakes. I mean, it seems like every game I watch, give you the penalty breakdown yesterday. 11 penalties for 80 yards for Buffalo, 4 for the Eagles.
I didn't think Hercules' crew had a good day yesterday.
Well, that's the one that and it sounds like sour grapes, but in reality, one of the most significant plays of the game was this play. And I'm gonna share the screen on this one so people can see this play. This was Buffalo in the red zone. And this was
the horse collar.
This is the horse collar that wasn't, right? This horse collar never gets called. Here it is. And let's take the volume out of this. Let's see. Hold on a second. Just so we don't get
YouTube copyright police, Larry.
Yeah, we don't want anything bad to happen here. Okay, here it is. It's 10-7 Buffalo. They're driving to make it 17-7. Second quarter, 1:25 to play in the second quarter. And look at the jersey. Look at the jersey tear right there. But it's not that. It's the second hand that grabs the horse collar on the back end. And not only did the Bills not get this call, by the way, people who want to rip Shanahan they blocked Hassan Reddick with a backup tight end. Buffalo's trying to block Hassan Reddick with Gabe Davis here. Look at that. Gabe Davis on a reach block.
He's not doing a good job there. Larry, that's not textbook right there.
Kincaid's on a free release there. Reddick's ripping it to the inside. Now it looks like Allen's. It's by design, right? Because they want to move Allen out to the right here, but still beady guys. So yeah, I mean that I thought that was a big play in that game right there. If they get the touchdown there, now of course, if you watch that game, I think the Eagles turned it over later there, and Buffalo got the ball back and did score a touchdown. So it wasn't like, but who knows the way that would have gone there.
Here's what I want for the 49ers game in terms of how it's officiated. I want them to let them fight. I want to let the teams decide this game. I don't want an overly officiated ticky-tack, hands-on jerseys, 2 yards past the release point. I want them to play. I want them to play. And I think that the NFL deserves that game where these two teams are allowed to battle it out. Let's see the amount of holding on Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Hargrave, what they're allowed to get away with. That is way too physical an offensive line to have just 4 penalties called on it all day long. But hey, maybe that's hometown Philadelphia cooking.
I'll tell you one other thing, Damon, is that at halftime of this Buffalo-Philly game, Jalen Hurts, 4 of 11, 33 yards, an interception, and a fumble. They were 0 for 4 on third down conversions. He had 7 runs for 22 yards. So he basically did nothing in the first half to speak of, and Philly was down 17-7. What I want to see in this game is I want to see Shanahan keep the gas pedal down, even if the Niners get up in the first game or in the first half. Why? Because Jalen Hurts, I think, proved yesterday that he can come alive in an absolute blink of an eye. And he had a monster second half. And all of a sudden, it's like you look up in that third quarter, Hurts to A.J. Brown for a touchdown at 17-14 Buffalo. Hurts to Devontae Smith, it's 24-21 Buffalo. Hurts to Zacchaeus, it's 28-24 Eagles. And that all happened, it's seemingly very, very fast. So, have some proper respect for your opponent. And just because you might be able, your defense might be, it's kind of like, go back to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Niners were keeping Mahomes and the Chiefs down. They got a little conservative when they got the ball back at the end of the first half because they're like, hey, let's just sit on our lead. Well, guess what? Mahomes and the Chiefs are an explosive offensive group, and they eventually woke up and they ran you over because you didn't score enough points. And it's like the same thing can happen with this Philadelphia team. They can score quickly. They get into a rhythm. And so all I would say is if you get up and it's 17-14, 17-7, 17-10, and you're feeling good, don't start running the ball and being super conservative and trying to take the clock and, this and that. No, stay aggressive for 4 quarters because this Eagle team can absolutely light up in a matter of a second or two. And then all of a sudden you can't stop the momentum, especially on the road.
At no point in time will the Eagles consider themselves out of the game if they're trailing in this game. That's just who they are this year. That is baked into that team's DNA. They do not stop coming. They're like Frankenstein. They keep coming forward, and you got to respect it. You really do. Jalen Hurts is someone who, can have an underwhelming day with his arms and still overwhelm you with his legs, and the way that his ability to run the ball just opens up so many running game options, a running game that popped for like 185 yards yesterday. He really is, Larry. The way that Tim Tebow, as great as Tim Tebow was as a quarterback, what Tim Tebow was at Florida more than anything else is the single greatest goal line back in SEC history. And Jalen Hurts is one of the greatest goal line backs already in Eagles history. I mean, this guy is among the Eagles' all-time leading touchdown leaders, rushing touchdowns already. He's just a winner. I mean, there are some guys that, I think we incorrectly attach the stat of quarterback wins to too many quarterbacks and just put it on them. This quarterback is this record. This quarterback is this record. quarterback wins are an unfair thing because it's a whole team sport. But at the same time, boy, does he earn them. He really does. Jalen Hurts earns the moniker of winner because it's insane how often he is standing in the winning column after playing a team, specifically a team that is over 500. Winners beat other winning teams. And that's Jalen Hurts' calling card, I think, in this league and in a career that's still very early in its own career. Jalen Hurts beats the game. Jalen Hurts wins the games that the Eagles might lose all the time. He really does. And Sirianni, he's got a punchable face. I'm sure a lot of people think Kyle Shanahan's got a punchable face, but Sirianni's really got a punchable face. But he knows what he's doing too. He's a pretty good coach, man. So this is
and there's no question. And Hurts is the guy that if you give him an avenue, if you don't stay in your rush lanes and you give him a free lane, he's going to take it. And he knows when to take it. Plus, then they mix in very, very well, design quarterback runs, and then he can gouge you. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're breathing heavy, and you've been chasing this guy around. And the Niners have great speed on that second level with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. They're going to have to be absolutely cognizant at all times of where Hurts is in the pocket. And as soon as he takes off, they're going to have to beeline right at him and see if they can bring him to the ground. I mean, it's just, and then then he's a quarterback too. So if you hit him too hard, then there's a penalty coming. So it's like that, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. They're really good at mixing in design quarterback runs. He's really good at scrambling. If you get out of your run lanes and give him a free lane, he takes it. Yeah, it's just, he fills in. They have great weapons, right? Now they won't have Dallas Goedert in this game, but I mean Devontae, AJ Brown,
AJ Brown is the Hulk. I mean, what a body.
DeAndre Swift is playing very, very well. Kenneth Gainwell is a damn good player. I mean, they've got some really good weapons on offense and a terrific line. And then the one thing that Buffalo did well in this game is they kept Philly out of 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 for the most part, much of the day. They got Philly into some bigger third downs, and yet they still lost the game. If you get them into 3rd and 1 or third, they're virtually impossible to beat. So you really got to do a job on 1st and 2nd down. It starts right there.
It's going to be the game of the year, Larry. 49ers, they show up with their weapons. We're going to have ourselves a street fight. I really think this is one of those George Kittle games. George Kittle's got to have a big game for the 49ers to win this game. It can't be one of those 3 catches, 15 yards, maybe a touchdown. George Kittle's got to go off. Ayuk's got to go off. Debo's got to have a huge game. And then there is the guy who we almost just assume the game's going to be a great game. Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, I've seen you score multiple touchdowns an awful lot this year. You got another multiple touchdown game. Bring it with you to Philadelphia because the 49ers are going to need them. I think the 49ers are going to need 38 points to win this game, Larry. I think they're going to have one of their most robust afternoons of offense because the Eagles are just going to keep coming, man. They really are. The Eagles can win whatever kind of game they're in. They win high-scoring games. They win low-scoring games. They can beat you. They're so scheme dynamic. I mean, they can beat you with their running game. They can beat you with their screen game. They can beat you with their vertical passing game. They can beat you over the middle. They can beat you in between the tackles, in between the guards. They can beat you outside the tackles. I mean, any way you want it. And I would say that is very much a similarity that they share with the 49ers. The 49ers don't just have 1 or 2 tricks up their sleeves. They got a lot of sleeves and they got a lot of tricks up all of them. I mean, they can do a lot of stuff. And I think that there is an element, again, of Kyle's playbook we haven't even seen yet, that he's been waiting to spring in this Philadelphia game. Don't you think that they got 1, 2, 3 plays that we have not seen that we're going to see in this game? I do. And I also think it's one of those games.
Oh, good.
Where you might steal a possession somewhere. What's the best fake punt you got in your playbook, Kyle? Because
the Niners never have faked punt.
I know
they just never have.
I know. So isn't that the perfect time to do it, especially with Wishnowsky being money in the bank in terms of pinning guys? You got to do something that is, play away from your tendencies. The
what do you
perfect
think?
time to run a punt is when when you never run a fake punt.
Yeah, no, taken by surprise, the element of surprise. What do you think of the spread? Did you see the spread?
Where is it?
Well, first of all, before you look for it, guess it. Give me the Damon Bruce organic guess without looking at the spread. What do you think it would be? It's week 13. Niners have a couple extra days to prepare. It's Niners in Philly Sunday. What do you think the spread should be? I'll say what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be Eagles by 4.
3.5? This sounds right. 49ers minus 3.5.
Minus?
Oh, no, plus 3.5.
It's 49ers minus 3.
Really?
The Niners are 3-point favorites in this game.
That feels like, remember, that's not Vegas trying to tell you who they think is going to win the game. That's Vegas trying to get 50% of the public to bet somewhere else, right? So, wow. Okay.
Shocking, though. Shocking.
Yeah.
That's a shocker.
That's
a 7-point swing on what I thought it would be.
Larry, I'll take the Eagles and the points. I mean, what are you kidding me? Just from a gambling standpoint, how can you not take a 10-1 team getting points at home?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is that a statement about the Fletcher Cox? Is it a statement or is it the fact that the Niners played on Thanksgiving and were just coming off of a very impressive win that the entire nation saw? Is it, I don't know. I don't know. How about this one? We got a couple supers. Let's hit a couple of our supers here.
Please.
Flav's in the house. He says, I wish I could get Javon Hargrave's honest opinion on who he thinks is the better team. Yeah. I could ask that question. I could ask that question off away from the locker room, and he would still go politically correct on me. There's no way he's answering that question this week.
Well, that's
Could you imagine? No matter what he said, it makes headlines. James Foster, turnover differential. Niners are plus 11. The Eagles are minus 2. That's the one thing that it does kind of make you go, what?
By the way, can I answer that question for Javon Hargrave?
Yeah.
The Eagles. The Eagles are the better team. They're the team that went to the Super Bowl. They're the team that won the NFC. They're the team with the best record. They're the team that hasn't lost at home. So the answer is the Eagles. The 49ers want what the Eagles have. That's the way this works. If you want what the Eagles have, if you want that reputation, if you want to be the team that every single talk show host is talking about next Monday, A block, first segment, you beat the Eagles. Or you are this is the arrow that will be fired at Kyle Shanahan right up until he does win that big game. Kyle and the Niners can't win the big one. Like, you're going to go right back to the same old talking points that still are not applied to Philadelphia because they win close, big games a lot. They do. So the answer is the Eagles. There it is. I'm sorry, 49ers fans, but we're being honest. Like, Larry and I are just the facts over here. And I think that the Eagles right now are the team that everybody in football wants to be. Or beat.
We had planned to do an hour, Damon, which is only 15 more minutes. I think we ought to push 15 more. We got almost 1,200 people in the room this morning, by the way. Lots of people dialed in to yourself and me on the 49er wake up. Keith Murphy from the Unbeaten says, thought he's on Rain playing thoughts on Rain playing a factor. Well, that's the thing. I agree. It is a factor. And I think if you said what has to happen for the Niners to win, Damon threw out one angle. I'll throw out another one. Niners have to play a clean game. They're not going to win this game turning it over 3 times or 2 turnovers in the red zone. No, I don't buy it. They're going to have to play a clean game, and the conditions are going to be a part of it. And that it makes it that much more difficult to play a clean game. One angle that I heard them mention late in the broadcast yesterday is that Philadelphia is 27th in the NFL on third downs on defense. 27th in the NFL. That's pretty low. Elite Archer 23 says the NFL is less trustworthy than the media. It's rigged. There we go.
Stop.
It's all rigged. It's a loaded card game. But that was probably a reaction to, the horse collar that wasn't there in the Buffalo game. But by the way, is Buffalo done after that? I mean, look at their schedule. They probably they're probably close to Dunsky.
I don't know about their upcoming schedule, but the upcoming schedule that I was looking at was the Eagles. And Niners at Cowboys. Look, here's the thing. The Eagles are through a chunk of their season that was supposed to take the starch out of them just a little bit, right? You had the Dolphins, then at the Commanders, where you have that funny division rival, and obviously Jack Del Rio just didn't survive the weekend. How about that? Jack Del Rio's got two of his better defenders traded, and then he loses his job. That doesn't seem very fair. Anyway.
Frank Reich got dumped this morning as well. You saw that.
I saw that. By the way,
he's a good coach.
He is a good coach, and David Tepper is the most meddlesome douchebag owner right now. He is really looking to win that title because that guy has fired what? This is the third coach he's fired mid-season in the last 5 years or something like that. Like, it's ridiculous the way that David Tepper is owning that franchise. And people hate working with him, hate being around him. Reich tap danced around that throughout a few of his press conferences that I saw this year. Anyways, but the Eagles right now, Larry, are in a stretch where they beat the Dolphins, they win at the Commanders, they beat the Cowboys, they win at Arrowhead over the Chiefs, and then they've just beaten the Bills. Now here come the Niners, then they go to the Cowboys, then they go to the Seahawks. That is a hell of a stretch to go through. I mean, that's like you're trying to play yourself through the SEC almost.
It makes you wonder, at least it makes me wonder, are they going to run through this gauntlet successfully and then get beat in the playoffs?
Maybe. I mean, they do end with a very easy Giants, Cardinals at Giants. They get to play the New York Giants in 2 of the last 3 games of their year and the Arizona Cardinals. So, look, if they're going to catch 2 losses to put the 49ers back in a pole position to maybe host an NFC title game as a 1 seed, the 2 losses have to be against the 49ers and then the Cowboys. The Bills came awfully close last night to setting up, hey, that's how the Niners ended up getting the 1 seed. And then it came up short. And the Eagles won another close game. But look, if the Eagles if the Eagles beat the 49ers and then they go and they beat the Cowboys,
and they get home field, but then maybe they get bounced. Weirder things have happened. Things have happened, and you know what? It's all about being rested and ready in the playoffs. I mean, you could say that in some ways, you could say this is kind of a freebie for the Niners. They're going to the playoffs, most likely, right? And they're probably going to have to beat Philly at least once this year to go to the Super Bowl. Are they going to be able to beat Philly twice? I don't know. But I mean, they almost got a freebie here. They can go see if they can get it done. They can't get it done. They're probably going to have another chance at it later in the year. But the Niners, if the Niners want to have the road to the Super Bowl roll through Levi's, which we do, they got to get this one. Wouldn't you say? I mean, this is a gotta have it game if you have designs on being the 1 seed. And to me, the 1 seed is so valuable. And it's not just for the home field. It's for the week off. It's for the bye. A bye in baseball is a bad thing. A bye and you saw all those teams that had, basically the time off. They didn't look good in the baseball playoffs. In football, the bye is necessary. So you want that bye. And it used to be the 2 top teams got the bye. Now with the kind of reshuffling of the playoff picture, it's only the 1 team, the best team in the league gets the bye. And the bye is just so incredible because you see how much better teams are when they're rested. And if you can, any of these teams get a rest advantage and a first round bye, it seems like that's a major, major advantage.
It is. It is. And the ship has probably already sailed on the 1 seed. It definitely sails away from you if you lose in Philadelphia. And look, if the Niners win in Philadelphia, then all of that, hey, they can really win the Super Bowl talk becomes for real. I mean, the winner of this game can win the Super Bowl. I don't know if the loser of this game can win the Super Bowl, but the winner of this game absolutely should be favored to win the Super Bowl over any AFC team, over the Ravens, over the Chiefs, over anyone. The winner, this is it. This is the heavyweight fight that we've been building towards all year. I think it's going to be the game of the year. It's certainly got the consequences of the year riding on it.
I mean, if you ask Philly fans, what was the bigger game to them? Kansas City or this NFC Championship game rematch? What would they say?
Well, I mean,
because
either way, you're talking about 2 huge pelts. I'll always take the conference win. The conference win is more important than
not avenging the Super Bowl defeat to the Chiefs in KC.
What do you get the trophy back? Like, avenge me.
Well, I mean, it's like the Niners are fascinated now with the Eagles. Why? Because the Eagles beat them. The Niners in the mid-'90s were fascinated with Dallas. Why? Because Dallas beat them. You could argue that Philly's fascination, they might be, I'm not saying they're looking past the Niners, but I think they've got proper respect. But they probably have more respect for the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs beat them in the Super Bowl. And that was probably the mountain that they really badly wanted to climb. You know, I don't know. I don't know.
I think that there's a handful of teams that all understand, like, hey, any given game, this handful of team can beat any of the teams in the handful. And the 49ers are in that handful, and the Chiefs are in that handful, and the Eagles are in the handful. And I don't know if I'm ready to put the Jacksonville Jaguars or Detroit Lions, with all due respect to their records, in that handful. I think that there are a few teams here. And look, we got to do a little heavy lifting to keep the Kansas City Chiefs in this conversation, don't we? The Chiefs might have a better defense than they got an offense right now.
Well, the Chiefs, and this is what happens when you spend $30-40 million on your quarterback. Suddenly you have to say goodbye to Tyreek Hill, and you're looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling and and Sky Moore. And yeah, the Chiefs' weapons, it's like take away Kelsey. It used to be like, okay, you take away Kelsey. Oh, here comes Tyreek. Now you take away Kelsey and you say, well, force him to go to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Force him to go to Sky Moore. Force them to go to one of those guys, and they're not as good. So,
well, I mean, the argument, so it's funny. There are arguments around Purdy that don't get applied to other quarterbacks. Like, you people who want to criticize Purdy, their very first criticism is, well, look at all that talent around him. I don't hear that about Jalen Hurts, and look at all that talent around him. And
I know that's a Nick Wright thing. I heard Nick Wright going, was it Broussard that was talking about, hey, Joe Montana had Jerry Rice and Roger Craig, and Steve Young had, John Taylor, Brent Jones, Roger Craig, and, Dion and all these guys. I mean, nobody ever talks about those guys having huge talent around them.
Right.
But suddenly here comes Brock Purdy, and it's like, he's got Shanahan, he's got Debo, he's got Ayuk. And the audacity of some people to try to say that Brock was bad in this last game. If you said Brock was bad in Seattle, you don't know ball. Right. It's simple as that. Well, you don't know ball. He made one tipped pass that became a pick six. Other than that, he had 2 other passes that were offline. The rest of the day, he was freaking throwing dimes. So I don't know what the hell you're watching. Seriously, I've watched that game now. I watched it live. I've watched it condensed. I've watched it, again from the TV copy. I've watched the all 22 start to finish. And I went through that thing with a fine-tooth comb. Brock Purdy played his ass off in Seattle.
He's a really good quarterback. I mean, there's no argument to be made that he isn't. But just, again, the darts that get thrown at Purdy, again, how come they don't hit Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes is a spectacular quarterback, but without all of that talent around him, I can't help but notice how much different the Kansas City Chiefs look. Now, I was told all you need is an elite quarterback. Well, obviously it takes a little bit more than just an elite quarterback, which Patrick is. So it's just, people pick and choose what arguments they want to make.
Look at this one.
Like a buffet.
Brock Purdy is trash. Trash.
All right. Again, that to me is not even a comment worth acknowledging. That someone in here.
But, it's just so ridiculous. Couple more supers here. Let's see. We got a few more here. Let's see. Flav jumps back in. Hey, Flav. He says, "Okay, Damon. Not who Javon thinks is the better team, but I would love to know who he thinks would win more if they played the best out of 10.
I mean, I don't want to speak for the man twice in one show, but I mean, it really does. Like this, if both these teams are who we think they are, one team would win 6, the other would win 4, 1 to 5 and 5 right down the middle. I don't see a scenario where either of these teams is taking 8 out of 10 against the other, right? I mean, who's got a better official? Who's got a better whistle? Who hit the one play instead of missed the one play that flipped the field or was the game-changing moment? And that's what it's going to come down to. 4 or 5 plays are going to go a long way deciding who wins this game, who gets home field, who might go to the Super Bowl. Again, it's just, you can't find a bigger game in your NFL schedule this season.
No,
it's going to be a great week.
Oh, it's going to be an amazing week. By the way, this game yesterday against Buffalo was the 4th game in a row that the Eagles have trailed at halftime and won anyway. How about that? 4 games in a row.
You can't count them out.
Gopher says, after this game, 49ers are back to having the disadvantage and rest again. Seahawks play Thursday, but the Eagles have the same deal with the Cowboys. Yeah, the Eagles get a rested Niner team, and then they get a rested Cowboy team.
By the way, his name was Gopher Baroque. Did you see that? Gopher Baroque.
Gopher Baroque.
Great name.
That. Well, let's go back to him. Gopher Baroque.
Baroque.
I appreciate the $5 there.
And
we also have Elite Archer 23. So I'm wrong? So non-disclosure agreements for NFL media networks and players aren't a thing then? How much are you getting paid to suppress truth?
All right. No conspiracy theorists. What are you talking about?
There was a second shooter on the grassy knoll.
Well, there probably was. But so the truth is that the NFL is so in bed with gambling that can't happen anymore. Okay, that can't happen. What is the thing that is big enough to actually destroy the football's credibility forever? An element of, don't confuse poorly officiated with that was rigged. And a lot of people do. And there's enough poor officiating where you would think the officiating is so poor, there must be something going on here. But Elite Archer 23, you're wearing a tinfoil hat. This is a multi-billion, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of business are being done around the NFL. And there is no preset, predetermined winner for any game before it kicks off because that's what the script says. That does not exist. Stop it.
Here's the thing. You just said it's a multi-million-dollar business. Okay. What do? It's a TV show. They sell ads. They want more people, not less people watching their ads. I don't believe the NFL's rigged. But if you ask me, do you think the NFL's manipulated to retain the audience into the second half? I would say yes. How many times have I watched games in the last 20 years where Team A is beating Team B badly? Maybe it's a big national TV audience, and suddenly the team that's winning big has a huge play. How many times is that play called back? It's like they know. If this game goes to 24, the audience goes away and we have less people watching our commercials. So suddenly there's a drag on the winning team and there's some kind of penalty and that they don't get, like in college, I watch a ton of football. In college, you watch a random game. You're watching Wyoming against BYU. and Wyoming's kicking BYU around. And then Wyoming gets a turnover late in the first half. It goes, they get a turnover in the first half, and that's it. And then they kick butt by more. But in the NFL, it just seems like the team that's winning, they have a huge play right before the first half that's going to make it a blowout. There's a penalty on it, and then all of a sudden we're all back watching the second half.
It feels like that. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. My eyes fall in the same game, in the same situation that you're talking about. And I think
I could be wrong, but that's my perception of it.
Here's the thing, Larry, your perception must be wrong, because if you're telling me that we're going to officiate this game one way until the scoreboard says to do it another way, then that means you're not going by what the rule book says. You're going by what the scoreboard told you to do, in which case we do now have rigged football games. So it's got to be coincidence. Maybe there's some correlation or causation or something there, but I mean, to say that it's rigged, it's not.
Well, we don't want to say it's rigged because we just don't want to say it's rigged.
If it were rigged, it'd be 49ers Cowboys in the NFC title game every year for a decade. Yeah. If it was rigged, because that's the biggest rating there is. 49ers Cowboys NFC title game, you can't find a bigger number. That's the biggest number there is. So,
but the most questionable play of what last year was the New York Giants against the Commanders. And suddenly that bad call went against the Commanders and went in favor of the Giants. And that's interesting. The bigger TV audience somehow, favored them, and they went into the playoffs. I don't know. There's a lot of money on the table.
You're starting to sound a little Raider fandy right there.
It's rigged. Just saying.
Rigged against us, trying to suppress us, keep us down, the nation.
We get this one, Elite Archer. So I'm wrong? Okay, wait. We got that one. We got this one. Do we get this one yet? Media has an impact, Larry. You act like the lights went out during the Super Bowl when one team was getting killed or something. Come on. Damon and I were sitting right next to each other during that one. Remember when the lights went out in New Orleans?
It was Beyonce's fault.
That was an amazing moment there in New Orleans.
It was.
Ramon Gonzalez, best show in town, guys. Philly is tough and has a better kicker, but we stop the run, protect Brock, and 0 turnovers. We can win. 94 Niners against Dallas again. Cannot wait. With a little football emoji.
By the way, we started the show talking about it. I do want to come back to it. The 59-yard field goal by Jake Elliott last night that put that game into overtime for the Eagles is one of the single greatest special teams play in the history of football. It really was, Larry. Amazing. That was you can't draw up, you can't invent a more pressure-filled what we always during the Olympics, during diving competitions, they always talk about degree of difficulty. The degree of difficulty on that kick was a solid 10 out of 10. The Russian judge, the Chinese judge, the American judge all agrees, like, okay, that's the hardest dive humanly possible. That is the hardest kick humanly possible. And he freaking drilled it. So let me say this about
And it would have been good from 65.
Yeah, maybe.
One of the greatest kicks of all time. He absolutely stuck it.
Wet football through the driving rain.
It was like a Vinatieri where he never got more than 30 feet off the ground. And it was just an amazing kick.
It was
absolutely
awesome.
Drilled it.
I didn't think he had it in. I was like, oh, he's not going to make this. Look, just everything's wrong about this. It's not going to go. Boom. So congratulations to Jake Elliott. Kick of the year, without a doubt.
Let me just get a couple more of these supers here. Flav says weather and health are the only things that can stop the Niners. Our O-line is trash, but scheme is so good. The 1 seed just so important because of weather in Philly. I don't know if the O-line is trash. That might be a little on the harsh side. You got the best left tackle in the game right now. I think Banks is playing at a really high level.
Got one of the best running games in football right now.
Yeah, and I think there's like 14 quarterbacks in the NFL that are more sacked than Brock Purdy. So I don't know about trash, Flav. It might be a little harsh. Flav says the media. Okay,
we got it.
We got that one. How about this one, Ramon?
Got it.
Got that one. How about this one? Go for broke. Purdy is the number 1 rated quarterback in the NFL. Number 1 in QBR. Number 1 in passer rating. Number 1 in yards per attempt, and number 1 in adjusted EPA per play.
Again, if he had a starting point that was at the top of the draft, he would be a face of the NFL, much less a face of a franchise, and people would be fawning all over them. They'd be falling over themselves like Oklahoma coming out of the smoky tunnel this weekend. They'd be falling over themselves trying to run up to him and hand him flowers. If Brock Purdy had been a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, people, their knees would be in all black and blue. They'd be blowing him so much.
That's a terrible imagery. Terrible imagery, Damon.
I went with it.
There could be kids watching this show.
Good morning, kids.
Good morning, kids. That ugly moment there was brought to you by Damon Bruce.
Subscribe.
Who are the other quarterbacks in the Purdy draft? Let me just peruse the 2022 draft here. I just have to look at some of these quarterbacks. It's probably just a who's who of nothingness. I mean, it really is amazing that the Niners got him in that draft, and where they got him in that draft. Isn't it amazing when you think about it? If you want to say the greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady, he was overlooked. If you want to say that Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time, he was overlooked. You know, Russell Wilson's probably a Hall of Famer, he was overlooked. Drew Brees is a future Hall of Famer, he was overlooked. And now you got Brock Purdy, and he's, number one in all these categories. He was incredibly overlooked by everybody, including the 49ers. I mean, it really is amazing when you think about the fact they got him. Kenny Pickett went 20th in that draft. He was the first quarterback picked. Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett's better with a new offensive coordinator, but come on.
By the way, so the first quarterback taken was at 20?
20. Desmond Ridder went 2. He went number 74 in the 3rd round.
Okay. So, I mean, that just shows you that it was a bad quarterback draft.
Malik Willis also round 3.
The draft Knicks were concerned. I mean, normally a quarterback is one of the first 5 picks off the board if there's a real quarterback of circumstance. So,
Matt Corral.
weird year to evaluate quarterbacks, I guess.
I mean, amazing. Truly amazing.
Bailey
Zappi went in the 4th round. I mean, are we going to have the Brady 6? Or are we going to have the Purdy, whatever number that we come up with of quarterbacks here? I mean, that's amazing. I mean,
let me ask you this, because we've talked about how Brock has risen from places unknown to turn into what he's turned into. And we've given a ton of credit to Kyle Shanahan for identifying this is my guy and not sticking with the higher priority draft that was Trey Lance and so on and so forth. What role does Brian Griese play in this? Because you only talk about QB coaches when things go wrong. You only talk about offensive coordinators when things are going wrong. They're kind of forgotten when we come and hand compliments out. Brian Griese is either a Svengali or a genius or about to be regarded as someone who needs to be elevated to offensive coordinator or head coach one year. I mean, how much credit does Brian Griese get for what we're looking at with Brock Purdy?
Well, it's all tied together. Brian Griese was there at Michigan with Tom Brady. So, and Brian Griese was a decent NFL quarterback in his own right. As far as identifying Brock, I think Brian Griese's part of their equation. I know that Griese said that he liked Brock, and how much did that sway the Niners? John Lynch tells a story that that one of the scouts banged the table and said, I really want this guy, and I forget the guy's name, but we probably never should. Kind of like Larry Riley wanted Steph Curry. But yeah, I mean, there's the identifying of Brock in the draft. And I think definitely Griese had some hand in that. And then there's the development of Brock. I mean, I asked Brock the other day, what do you do when you come off the field between series? And he said, I go over to Brian Griese and he tells me what he sees. And then we look at the tablet and then I concentrate on my breathing. And we go over, what he sees in real time, and then I get my mind right to go back out there and and execute. So, I think Brian Greasy's had a huge hand in it. He's had a huge now. I mean, Brock Purdy's Brock Purdy. I don't believe that Brian Greasy made Brock Purdy Brock Purdy. I don't. I think Brock Purdy was damn good. Iowa State wasn't, killing people, and suddenly Brock Purdy showed up in Ames, and they were. And then when he left, they went 1-8 in conference. So I'm not going to say that, I'm going to give Brock Purdy credit first and foremost. But as far as the Niners identifying that Purdy was a good quarterback prospect, I think Brian Greasy had something in that. And as far as developing him and helping him, bring him along, I don't think. And here's why I think Greasy deserves credit here, is that I think Kyle Shanahan has created an offense and play calls that obviously benefit Brock Purdy. But I don't know that I would say that Kyle Shanahan is a Mike Holmgren like quarterback whisperer. I think he's more like his dad, who was an awesome play caller. And I think that maybe you need a guy like Greasy to complement what Shanahan doesn't do as well. I think Shanahan's more of a awesome play sequencer designer than he is of a quarterback, developer. But I don't even know that. That's just what I suspect. In fact, one of the questions I'd love to ask this week is, I've been kind of told on the record, off the record, that Mike Shanahan, who was there in Seattle and looked really thrilled when Purdy hit Ayuk for the clincher, that Mike Shanahan has a regular hand in what the Niners do.
Why wouldn't he? What a resource.
Well, why wouldn't he? It's because he lives in a different city and he's a retired coach and this and that. But yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, he was a great play caller.
He watches and grinds tape. You go back and you watch any of those old Super Bowl reels where, Steve Young is talking about the practice and the night before the Super Bowl over the Chargers when they blew their doors off and they were just like, all right, this play is going to do this play is going to do that, and then the third play is going to be a touchdown, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then that play is going to be a touchdown because we've set it up that way. And everything that they talked about came true. Like, you want a guy like Mike Shanahan.
Oh, absolutely. It makes me as a 49er fan feel more confident knowing that Mike Shanahan could be having some say in their offensive play calling or play design. I think some of the most genius plays I've ever seen in 49er history, going back to the one that sticks out in my mind, and I've mentioned it to Kyle in the past, was the first score of Super Bowl 29 when the Niners are playing the Chargers and they run Jerry through the middle of the field against a zone, and he takes all the defenders with him, and they basically got Waters out of the backfield, and he just follows Jerry on the same path and was wide freaking open. And it was like, I remember asking Kyle about that play, and I'm like, man, I would love to see that play with Ayuk and McCaffrey, where you can just get Ayuk and draw the coverage all away and then dump it to McCaffrey on the same deal and let him just go. Yeah, I mean, Mike Shanahan was an amazing offensive coach. I mean, if we had Steve Young sitting here right now, he could attest to it firsthand that Mike Shanahan was one of the greatest. I mean, this is a guy who, Steve Young was there with Walsh, was there with Holmgren, was there with Tressman, was there with several offensive coaches through the years. I guarantee you could probably get Steve's assessment on Mike Shanahan as a sequencer, play designer, and I bet you he holds him in the highest of regards.
What father, son, look, coaching is the family business.
Right.
The way that quarterbacking was the Manning family business. Coaching is the Shanahan family business. And the old man is the best consigliere that you can have sitting at the table, helping you come up with the right play. And it's a resource that Kyle would be insane to not tap into. And I'm sure he does all the time. And
what do you think
Shanahan is invested when they go to their cutaway to the elder Shanahan shots? You can tell he's got some skin in the game, man. He ain't just watching his kid.
Right. No, totally, Damon. That is so true. He doesn't look like, hey, I'm here eating popcorn.
Right.
It's like, hey, I designed this play.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I came up with that.
And if you're Mike Shanahan, I mean, think about it. You've got 2 little boys. I got three boys, 4 kids. When you've climbed to the top of your professional field the way Mike Shanahan has, and you've won Super Bowls, he won with the Niners. Then he went to Denver. He won with Denver. He's a made man, right? And what does Mike Shanahan want more than anything in life? I guarantee you, he wants Kyle to win a Super Bowl. He wants Kyle to have the ultimate validation, and because he knows Kyle's a great young coach, but he also knows Mike Shanahan's a smart enough guy to know that you don't get love in this world without pelts on the wall. Andy Reid ain't Andy Reid unless he goes to Kansas City and wins with Mahomes. Otherwise, he's just another good coach who didn't get it done. But if he goes to Kansas City and gets it done with Mahomes, now he's a Hall of Famer. Well, the same thing with Kyle. Kyle's a damn good coach. He's a Hall of Famer if he wins a Super Bowl or 2. So I'm sure Mike's single purpose, football-wise, is to help his son climb to the top of that mountain.
What father doesn't want their son or their daughter to exceed their own success? Right? That's it. I mean, isn't that what fatherhood is? You want your children to do better than you,
especially if they chose your field.
Right.
You know, if you have your young kid Jack suddenly becomes some great talk show host, and you're sitting
God
there,
forbid, Larry. God forbid. Oh my God, no, we can do better than that.
You're vacationing on some exotic Bahamas island with your lovely bride, and he's saying, "Dad, you know, I got a big show coming up, and I what do you think?" You would absolutely be like, "Hey, let me get the sand out of my toes. Let me put away my fancy drinks. Let me just go into a room. Jillian, I'll be back. I need to talk to Jack. I need to counsel him on this incredible show that he's got coming up." And you would take it very, very seriously because you would dream the dream for him.
Absolutely. Here's what I would do, kid. You do it your way, but here's what Dad would do. These are 3 talking points, and it might be time to pull the old run a fake punt bullshit out of your back pocket, because that always works good on a slow week. I mean it, Larry. No, that fake punt, no one's looking for it. Spring it, Kyle. Spring it. And everyone's waiting for Wishnowski to have his little whirly bird floppy disk punt of his, and run it. Can that Pollock throw an 8-yard out? Do it.
Go for Brooks. Is Purdy number 1 despite having the 28th ranked pass protection? Yeah, the Niners are 28th in the NFL in offensive line win rate, and yet Purdy behind that line is kicking butt.
What would Purdy do behind the Eagles line? No, never mind. That's a lazy talk show.
Yeah, or, you know, if you put Josh Allen on the Niners, he would be 10 times better. Flav says $4.99. If you reverse Moody's kick in Cleveland and Elliott's yesterday, the season is completely different right now. Just shows how much goes into winning a Super Bowl.
Amen to that, Flav. That's seriously maybe the best observation of the day, of the show. Imagine that. Moody hits the kick in Cleveland. Yep. Elliott misses his kick last night. What kind of a different universe is this Sunday's game being played in?
That's why Flav is Flav. There's some genius there. There's some genius there. Bazzy Mion says, why do we need a comeback win? Jimmy G and Patrick Mahomes have the same amount of fourth quarter comeback wins, 13 according to Pro Football Reference. Now, the whole comeback win is people that were wrong about Trey Lance, who don't want to give Brock his flowers, and they're just being stubborn at this point. So they just keep dangling.
It's the last
frontier
they got. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, and I get it. And believe me, I to this moment am on record as saying that I believe Trey Lance is going to be damn good. So I understand people who say, oh, you know what? I thought Trey Lance was going to be good, but I believe it. Really believe he'll be good in time. He just wasn't going to be good in time for this season. And that was pretty clear to me, at least a long time ago. Go for Broke says, over the past 2 games, Eagles D has been on the field for 166 plays, 72 plays against the Chiefs, 92 plays against the Bills. Philly's D has got to be worn out. This also, Damon, is a genius super chat by Go for Broke.
Yes, it is.
This was an angle that I forgot to bring up. Yeah, I was looking at the post-game notes on this thing. Buffalo had the ball for 92 plays in over 42 minutes and produced 505 total yards against this Philly D. Is this Philly D getting worn out? The Fletcher Cox may not go this week. Is this Philly D, does it have the same teeth as it used to have? Nothing lasts forever in the NFL. You know, these games are played by real people, and there's real consequences. But that, to me, is, I was wondering that as well, looking at the box score at the end of that game. Can the Eagles, with 3 less days to prepare, bounce back? Now, granted, the Niners have to do the west to east travel. They don't. They get to sleep in their beds. But can they bounce back from a 92-play deal against Buffalo? And I didn't realize they had gone 72 against the Chiefs.
And I look, last night was set up to be the perfect loss for the Eagles. It's looking at it from a 49ers perspective. Like, you get drug into overtime, and then you get the gut punch, and then it's like, Philadelphia, the town's going to eat itself alive over a loss on Sports Talk Radio this week. And it was so set up. It was so set up. But that is a Go for Broke, an outstanding super chat. And I wrote down that, and we'll be talking about that on my show at 11 o'clock on the Plus for sure, because it's a great observation. It really is. And,
great observation. No doubt.
Maybe that's a little look. Maybe the best friend the 49ers got is a little bit of starch taken out of the Eagles based on the quality of their past few opponents and just the grind on their own bodies. Like you said, Kelsey was a little gimpy. Cox might not go. And they've been playing such a savage style of football. A savage style of football that sometimes that comes back and you pay a tax on that with your own body. And
maybe it isn't paid off on Sunday, Damon. It might be a deal where the Eagles run through this gauntlet undeterred and have nothing in the playoffs. I'll say this. I can remember as an older 49er fan, the year that Roger Craig went for 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. They got to the playoffs. He had nothing left.
Right.
He had nothing left. He had an amazing regular season. But when it got time for the playoffs, he didn't have anything left.
This
makes me wonder.
This is the 73. Yeah, this is the 73 win Warrior theory, right?
Right. And it's not even a theory. It's kind of like, these aren't robots. These are people, you know, and maybe the Eagles' year is going to be defined by this gauntlet run that they have in the regular season, but Detroit bumped them in the playoffs, or the Niners bumped them in the playoffs.
One of the cooler things that ever happened on my show was I had a sequence of Olympians that were set up to do some promotional stuff, and it was a lot of track and field, but off-brand track and field. It was cross country. It was just stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention, and that's why we had these people on my show. We had someone who was a fencer from the Bay Area, and they were talking about their Olympic experience. And more than anything else, the one common thread that every single Olympian ended up talking about was how you show up to the Olympics with one tank of gas, and how you burn that tank of gas will determine whether or not you have enough left for the medal rounds. And in football, you know, it's such a winner take all every single week that, yeah, maybe how you have to burn your tank of gas, maybe all of these grinded out close games, maybe this is where the Eagles' point differential of plus 64 affects their postseason more than the 49ers differential of plus 140, because the Niners have had a couple games where they've been able to throw their feet up on the dashboard and hit cruise control. And that's a luxury. The Eagles haven't had that luxury in a lot of their games.
Energy expended.
Exactly. Having enough in your gas tank for the championship round is what every Olympian, especially if they've got, you got to run certain flights to qualify for the medal rounds and all that stuff. And how you run those first races, not at your ears pinned back fastest, will determine whether or not you got enough left when it really comes time to do it. I'll tell you, just the grind of this year. I mean, Larry, the 49ers are sitting at 8-3. So they've played 11 games. They still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They still got 6 football games. There are 6 games left in this season. That's a season within a season.
Oh, I know.
6 games. I mean, there is.
And as a guy who gets a chance to go in the locker room and talk to the players, man, I asked John Feliciano, Big John, the other day. I said, John, how you feeling? This is after the game. And he's like, man, the older I get, at the end of these games, I got to be honest with you, man. I don't feel that great.
Yeah.
I don't feel that great.
There's nothing about this sport that's good for anybody playing it. Nothing.
Right. It's a war of attrition. And the hits are real. You know what I mean? It looks like we're watching it on TV and we're getting another thing of cocoa and making a hot turkey sandwich. These guys are out.
Should have caught that. I
should have caught that. He's soft. He's soft, I say. Honey, can I get some more cider for my mug? He's soft. That Fletcher Cox is soft.
More eggnog.
Can I get a little more gravy on my turkey my warm turkey sandwich is only room temperature, honey, because I took a phone call. Could you put it in the microwave for 15 seconds? Fletcher Cox is soft. I need a little bit more stuffing. I mean,
by the way, pulling off the properly microwaved hot turkey sandwich is one of the hardest things to do in your kitchen, because you let it go 1 second too long, that bread just turns to mush. So that's a very, very tight rope to negotiate. But you're right. I mean, look, fans and I love fans. There is no more there's no more widely consumed yet less understood subject in America than the NFL.
Well, and also, I mean, I loved, and I'm sure many of you listening and watching also are with me. We all loved the big hits. We all love it.
Sure.
You ask Niner fans who are of a certain age, who's your favorite Niner? As great as Joe Montana was, there's a lot of guys walking around going, Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott. Why do they love Ronnie Lott? Because he detonated on dudes. Because he blew up Icky Woods. Because Ronnie in an era of hitting was the hitter. He was the guy. He would fold you like a cheap suit. He was an unbelievable monster hitter. But let's be honest, that's a guilty pleasure.
And somebody here,
and even guys of yesteryear, we had Icky Woods on the pregame show before the Bengals game, and I asked him about today's NFL, and Joe Kelly was there as well. We had Lo Neal, and we were talking about how the hitting of that era was just absolutely monster, and the players of that era don't apologize for it. They wear it like a badge of honor. But they also know that there's a price. There was a price that their collective bodies paid for that kind of violence. But as fans, we ate it up. But you know what? They're real people. And go to like an East-West Shrine practice or anything where a bunch of old scouts are out there. They're hobbling. Nobody's moving too good. Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, I had my hip replaced, and I got 2 artificial knees, and I haven't been able to feel my ankle when it's below 40 degrees for like 15 years, but no, I'm doing great. Wife's doing great. Kids are doing great. I got a grandson, it's like, but they're not doing great. There was a price that was paid for the violence that they played of the era that they played in. And we enjoyed it.
Yeah. And look, now there's a guy who I've rubbed the wrong way, or we have rubbed the wrong way, Larry. His name is Brandon. He's in the chat here. He says, so are you making fun of fans who support the game and pay to watch the product on the field but can't have an opinion? No, we're not making fun of anyone, but I am here to tell you that most of the time your opinion is coming from an uninformed place that's wrong. Just straight up. I mean, like, if you say that guy sucks about any professional athlete, you're wrong. He might have had a bad day. He might have had a bad game, but that guy is better at his job than whoever you work with is at yours. Like, the worst player on any football team is better at what they do than the best salesman in any insurance company going. You know, I mean,
they're not above criticism.
No, they're not
but
above
they are the very best at what they do.
It's the elite 0.5% that make it to this level. And it is so hard. It's so hard. If you've ever said out loud, this is going to be an easy game, you've disqualified yourself from further discussion. There are no games in this league.
You know, here's the thing. I mean, and we're not ripping fans. Fans are fans, and that's what they're the reason the league is worth $20 billion.
Right.
And we're doing a live stream right now about a sport that is been made to be a $20 billion industry by you, the fans. So who are we to make fun of? Anybody. But as somebody who's done the quality control job, I can just, and that's, I'm not saying that I'm super qualified, but I've worked the NFL hours with NFL coaches. When we are questioning, when I say we, I mean me, Damon, you, anybody. We're all together. I'm putting the collective we. When we question Shanahan or Reed or any of these guys, we're doing it after having watched for like maybe 10 hours. Maybe you watch the game 3 times. And that's like the most devoted fan has probably watched it 3 times. So maybe you devoted 10 hours to it. I've actually been on staffs where everybody showed up at 5 a.m. and everybody went home at midnight all week, every week. So think about the hours committed. And that's why guys like Shanahan seem like they're pushed out of shape when they get questioned by people that are just observing, because we're observing. Even the hardest of hardcore of us are observing for like 10 hours when he just spent 120 hours. Look at a picture of Kyle Shanahan the day he signed with the Niners. Look at him now. His body has taken a toll. The job takes a toll. I mean, there's a reason that I ran from my football, pro football future to radio, because I wanted to have a regular life with a regular wife and regular kids, and not work 120 hours and have just a distant relationship with my wife and a casual relationship with my children, and try to shoehorn my family time into Fridays between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. That's the price that these guys pay. And so they're rolling that thing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's all I'm saying, is that we watch the game so we think like we know. Like, oh, you know what? I've watched every game. I don't care. It doesn't matter. They're spending 120 hours a week, and you're spending at most 10. Show some respect for those 110 hours that they're committing to breaking this thing down that you're not. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're always right, because they're not. But I'm just saying, have some respect for that commitment of time, energy, and effort.
Absolutely. And just because you've done a couple of math equations doesn't mean you're ready to do advanced trigonometry to figure out how to land the space shuttle on the moon. And that's the difference here. I mean, I think one of my biggest problem, and I'm not going to be talking about anybody, I haven't said his name and I don't want to hear his name anymore.
Don't say anybody's name.
If you go to a football practice, and you watch football practice, it's training camp, it's midseason, whatever. If you are around an NFL team and you walk off the practice field insisting that you know more than anyone who was just out there doing that, it's ridiculous. If you go to an actual NFL training camp and you don't walk off that field with the overwhelming feeling like, I have no idea what the fuck it is going on here. Like this is so complicated. This is such an endeavor that these guys are speaking a language which I can maybe follow along with, but I'm really only picking up every 3 or 4 words here. I don't understand this language entirely. I can't live in this world. There is just a world of professional athletics, and this applies to the NBA, to Major League Baseball. I mean, there's the scouting report that you hear Mike and Dwayne talk about during the game, and then there's the actual scouting report. And if you ever actually read a Major League scouting report on an entire team's bullpen, it's as thick as a phone book, and you'd be blown away.
The level of detail.
You'd be blown away by how complicated and how strategic and how there is a language that you don't even hear being discussed at all times. The stuff that we see that comes through the TV is the final product. The journey to that final product is remarkable. It's remarkable. And it
can't be evaluated either. It's like, I literally, when I was in the Canadian League, Kay Stevenson was the head coach. He was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So we had an entire staff of NFL people. All NFL people. My job was to work. One of many jobs, but one of the jobs of the quality control coach on that team that year was to help put together the practice scripts for practice. We would be literally 30 minutes from taking the field for stretch. And Kay would walk into the room with his coffee cup, and he said, "Hey, I just talked to the DB coach, and he said that, blankety blank DB never has his gloves even cinched up until we get to the team portion. I want you guys to go at, 14 in the first 5 plays of practice today. Okay, we'll just go right at 14. We're going to go right at him. Coach wants to make a point. Coach blankety blank wants to make a point to his DB." So we had a whole script that was done that we all agreed to, and this and that we had plays that we wanted to see, looks we wanted to look at, formations we wanted to explore. We scrapped the first 6 plays because Kay walked in with a coffee cup and said that the DB coach wanted to make sure that his top corner cinched up his gloves and was ready to roll right from the start of practice. And that changed everything in the practice and changed everything in the breakdown of the play distribution and everything. It changed everything. All right. If you are sitting there with a pad going, well, they did this and they did this and they did that and they did this, and you're trying to define meaning out of that, you weren't privy to that conversation.
Right. You don't even know what the goal was.
Yeah. You're not seeing that conversation. So that's all. I'm there watching, and I feel like I'm learning something when I watch, but there's a big difference between I'm learning something that I'm watching and I know all. No, you don't know all, because it's people trying to motivate and coach people. And it's not linear. There's people, there's players that don't practice hard, that coaches need to kick in the butt. There's all kinds of factors that go into the sequencing of a practice, this and that. And people sometimes speak about it like it's clinical, like there's none of that has any relevance. And it's like that's the people side of it.
Right.
So,
you weren't privy to learn. You didn't know that it was, let's test that cornerback practice. So what you walked away with was, this quarterback only makes one read. He only throws to one guy all the time. And he's why he sucks. And he threw 3 interceptions. And that's a Wednesday in April and blah.
Yeah. So you just got to remember that, you're close to it, and more than maybe Joe on the couch because you're at practice, but you still don't know. There's a difference between knowing and observing closely as opposed to observing from further away. That's all I would say.
The further away from the game, the more you actually think you know. The closer you get to it, you learn quickly that this is happening on a plane and a level that is very difficult.
There's just many, 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 many factors that you'll never realize and will never bubble up to the public, that, coach doesn't want to admit that his best corner is not a great practice player. There's no it's not advantageous to
Right.
put that out in the public discourse, but he wants to motivate that player. So, I mean, there's just any number of things, and that's just one example, but there's many, many other examples. Bay Area says, you two were my favorite hosts at KMBR. Glad to see the two of you together again. I remember Steve Young saying that Mike Shanahan was a better play caller than Mike Holmgren. That's interesting. I think I've heard that as well. Gabriel Babowski says, however, if the Eagles win out, I bet you they will rest people. They've done it every year for the past 3 years. Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't mean that they won't lay an egg in the playoffs. So it's
once
all
that one seed is locked up, that you don't rest until you got that seed sewed up.
Yeah. Hey, this is going to be as proof of we have almost 1,500 people probably in the room watching this thing, over 1,200 on this side of the on this channel. We got a lot of Niner talk coming up. This is arguably one of the biggest weeks of the year. Let me just tease what I've got on the Krueger show, and then Damon will tease what he's got coming on his show. At 10 a.m. today, I'll be doing a podcast with Brianna McDonald and Lindsay Polaris with the 49ers. That's coming up later today. I believe Grant and I will stream on his channel later today. There's a chance I'll be down at practice later today as well. The Niners are having an open locker room today. Tomorrow, the great Jody Mack, who you can catch on WIP in Philly and WFAN in New York, who's a big Philly honk and a good friend of mine. He's going to be by tomorrow at noon on the Krug Show. Really looking forward to chopping it up with Jody Mack. Also tomorrow night, Raj will be in the house from RSF 49ers. Love rapping with Raj. Wednesday, I'll be down in Ninerland all day talking to players, Shanahan, Lynch, or the locker room, the whole deal. 49er Media Day. And then tomorrow, Wednesday night at 7, I'll do my video call show with Kev Krueger. We didn't do it this last Wednesday, not for any real reason, but that it was the night before Thanksgiving, Damon, and Kev is a college student and was partying with his college.
As he should.
The night before Thanksgiving. He's like, Dad, I feel bad. I'm like, you feel bad? Freaking go see all your high school buddies and tell them I said hi. And by the way, many of them said that they were big fans of the channel and our show. So the 49er Wake Up is bled through to the college crowd, according to Kev. 49er Media Day also on Thursday. I'll be down there for that. And then 6:30 on Thursday night, I believe Jesse Vish and I will rejoin for the big show. Friday, Chase Sr. stops by at 10:45 in the morning. And then in the afternoon, Damon and I, or Friday morning at 8 a.m., Damon and I will go again with 49er Wake Up. So we're going to go 8 a.m. on Friday morning, another edition of this show. Chase Sr. joins me at 10:45. And then later in the afternoon on Friday, probably late in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, Ike Reese is going to stop by from IP in Philly, the former Eagle. And I think Damon's going to join me, hopefully, for that live stream coming up on December 1st, Friday, 9 a.m. on September 2nd, next Saturday, or this Saturday. The coach will be by to look ahead to the game. And then Sunday, Niners Eagles from the link, and we'll do regular post game. In addition to all that, there'll be lots and lots of videos. I'll be doing some Warrior content this week. There's also a report out there that I think is really interesting. Jim Bowden over the weekend, the baseball guy, the former GM of the Nationals and Reds, put it out there that the Giants, he says, I've been told by multiple agents that the San Francisco Giants are all in on this year's free agent market and appear prepared to spend significant dollars on multiple star level players. He says, I'll be surprised if they don't sign at least 2 impact free agents. He says, if they can't land Cody Bellinger, I think they'll pursue Juan Soto. Anyway, I don't know if that is,
Do it. Do it.
I don't know if that's true.
They're going to do, might do, will do. Look at them to do it. Do it.
Farhan's going to do something. If Farhan does something, I will go live and have, the full gamut. Danny, Ned Coletti, Marty Lurie, Damon. We'll do the whole breakdown of Giants just signed Shohei Ohtani. Giants just signed Cody Bellinger. So as soon as the Giants do anything, don't go to the radio. Come to YouTube and we will have a monster live stream talking all Giants baseball in the offseason if they do anything of significance. If they do nothing, then we'll do nothing. So that's what I got going on my channel this week, and hopefully you guys are there with me for every bit of it. We are approaching 29,000 subs and hope to get to 30,000 by Super Bowl Sunday. And we're hoping the Niners are in that game on Super Bowl Sunday. Damon, what do you got cooking on your channel? We got a couple more supers to get to as well.
Well, let me just tell you that what we got cooking is an approach to 10,000 subscribers. It's been a great first year here on YouTube. The football season in the last month of it has seen my channel really grow, and I can start feeling the algorithm and it happening, and I can feel the fans starting to subscribe more and more. If you are subscribing to Larry, please go ahead and hit a subscribe over here for Damon Bruce. And I can tell you right now, one of my favorite subscribers is your son, Larry, Kevin Krueger, who is sharing a market report that 49ers Wake Up viewers have. You have 1,200 on your end. I've got a couple hundred watching on my end, Larry. So we have about 1,500 combined viewers on this show across both of our channels. And we are dwarfing the combined audience of both established sports talk stations. Essentially, here it is. There are 2 sports talk stations in town, and the sports talk show that is on YouTube, when Larry and I host it, are the #1 sports talk station in town. So we're the #1 sports talk station in town, Larry. 49ers Wake Up. Welcome, everyone. It is the most viewed show out there. Not my opinion. This is what Kevin just shared with me in the last 15 minutes. So thanks to all of you. We're coming out of Thanksgiving. I'm incredibly thankful. I told you and Larry, you and Kevin, I shot you both a text. Man, I'm thankful for all the help that you guys have given. It's been a great start to a journey, and I can't wait to see where it ends up. In terms of this week, look, we got some Warriors and Kings in a tournament or in-season tournament game.
Tuesday night,
my goodness, on Tuesday night. I know that tomorrow.
The return of Draymond Green.
Yay. Who will he choke next? One of the single best sports talk show hosts in Philadelphia, John Kincaid, is going to be joining me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So we're going to be going early tomorrow. I'm going to be on his show in Philadelphia later this week. And other guests are being set up for what is really nothing short of the biggest week to hype the biggest game in the NFL that we're going to get all year. It's the most consequential game in the NFL because this is, we know what's riding on it. It doesn't need much more preamble, but we'll be preambling it all week long leading up to the NFC's version of an in-season Super Bowl, 49ers and Eagles. It's going to be absolutely huge. Plus, efforting, we're going to figure it out with Nick Wright. He'll be joining me at some point sometime.
Why?
We get to the end of December. Why?
That guy's a freaking clown.
You're going on that show today? Is that it?
Look at that. Hey, couple last supers here we do have here. I don't like Nick Wright though. I just don't think that Nick Wright's substantive when it comes to the Niners. Flav says 1 seed obviously unlikely, but think we need at least the 2 seed. Playing the winner of Dallas Philly compared to having to go through both would be huge.
Indeed.
Though tell Skip Bayless when you see him next, Niners aren't afraid of Dallas. Brock Purdy's balls say every team to beat the 49ers this year lost the starting quarterback to season-ending injury. Eagles tread lightly. Well, there you go. Flav says, I can feel the algorithm, Damon. Sounds like Elon Musk trying to talk dirty to his wife or something. Flav is golden. Also, as we were sitting here, the great Ike.
Drop some of that on my channel. Go ahead. You don't have to always super chat just to Larry. My goodness.
Flav, no, that's I think to you. I think that is on your channel. Flav.
If it doesn't have a little link, it's not to me. That's all right.
Yeah, see, there it is. I see a little link. Has a little circle there. Aren't you the guy with the circle? Yeah, I think he's donating to you. Also at 7 p.m. For Ike Reese on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So Damon, I don't know if you can be around. I know your Fridays are sometimes busy, but 4 p.m. Pacific, if you got time, you're more than welcome to join me and Ike Reese for a late week Niner Eagle breakdown. And if you guys know Ike, he does the show Ike Up All Night. Ike at Night, or he did the show Ike at Night. I think he's now been promoted to a better time slot. But Ike is awesome. He's really, really good. The former Eagle linebacker. Love Ike Reese. So he'll join us to cap this thing off.
Oh, and Flav
on Friday.
did drop that. Flav did drop that on my channel. You're right about that. So thank you very much, Flav. And look, speaking of Ike, get an Ike sandwich this week. Enjoy a little pig and pickle. If you're into some barbecue, get an Ike sandwich. Let me tell you, if you're looking for great vintage shirts, check out jaxsf.com. Some of the coolest Bay Area vintage t-shirts you're going to find anywhere. Use promo code DamonBruce10. You can get all your holiday shopping done right at jaxsf.com. And Larry.
Yeah, and once again, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. We also should tell people, if you would like your company to be the title sponsor of 49er Wake Up, and why wouldn't you at this point? Because as Damon just kind of pointed out there through Kevin's breakdown, this show draws big numbers. Feel free to contact us, either DM me or DM Damon. We would love to have a title sponsor of this show. I've got a new sponsor to announce this week on the Krueger Show. But as far as this individual show, we're still looking for sponsorship for this show. And if your company would like to sponsor just this show, which we're going to be doing at least twice a week going forward, just DM us and we'll figure it out. Sounds good.
Slide into those DMs, as the kids
slide into the DMs. Yeah. As that commercial says.
Larry, well, we've reached the conclusion of another 49ers Wake Up. And I got to tell you that, I wrote down a name in the envelope at the beginning of this year, and it said Eagles. And that's going to be a big game for the Niners. I'm going to go on with Ralph this week. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to get very excited.
Trent, you're so funny. Now you're in Jacksonville. I mean, come on, really, do you really like Jacksonville? Because you were in the Bay Area and you own property here. I know you own property. And now you're in Jacksonville. You probably got 3 houses in Jacksonville for what you paid here in the Bay, right, Trent?
Well, it smells a little funny in this town. It really does. And that's because we got a little swampland to build on. So, yeah, we got more real estate footprint. It's a lot easier. I mean, I remember when Jeff Kent famously said, you people are crazy paying these Bay Area prices. He was right. He was right. You come to Jacksonville, you got to live in a swamp. But, boy, do you get some square footage with it, Ralph.
Trent, you're always ripping me and ripping San Francisco. The bottom line is, at the end of the fucking day, you took Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, who does that? I mean, Tom, would you do that? I wouldn't do that. Tate wouldn't do that. Nobody would do that. Why would you take Aiden Hutchinson's great? Why wouldn't you take Aiden Hutchinson, Trent? You can write his name down in an envelope all you want. You took Trayvon Walker. I can't. And that A.J. Jenkins traffic was a freaking joke. Come on, Trent. Come on. What did Aiden? Were you afraid that Trayvon Walker tears ACL? Was that the bottom line? Was that the determining factor?
What I love here is there's a guy named Michael Trujillo saying, what is going on? There's a guy named Cosmo who's like, what the fuck is this? That's great. That is great. Larry, you're the man, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks to everybody. And happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. I'll be gone for the next 3 weeks, but whoever's filling in for me will do a great job. Thanks to Damon. Thanks to everybody, Kev Krueger. And thanks to everybody. Peace.